Well, all Allied officers were there, all the pilots, all the air crew that were officers were there. The English were the predominant ones at that time. In fact, when I got there, I was in the British compound, and that's where these tunnels were at the time being worked.
In 1963, the film The Great Escape brought to life a daring and ingenious plan to liberate more than 200 men from Stalag Luft III, the most secure prisoner of war camp in the heart of Hitler's Germany, at Sagan, 100 miles southeast of Berlin, where they planned to operate an escape-proof compound. Captured airmen of all nationalities were brought together in the camp named Stalag Luft III.
You spent a significant amount of your military career in Stalag Luft III.
I was there about 4 months, and until our compound was completed.
During that time period, what was your role?
Well, I enlisted to work on the tunnel.
While in captivity, Brickhill was involved in the construction of 3 tunnels, including the 350-foot underground passage, through which 76 men escaped in March 1944.
Working on the air ducts now.
Well, when will they be finished?
1 or 2 days.
Does it work?
Of course it works.
Will it give us enough air?
Twice as much as you'll need.
You saw the rowing, what appeared to be rowing, on the fellow who was pumping the air or operating the pump itself. And that's what you did. It was just like sitting in a rowing machine.
Just trying to visualize how the Germans weren't noticing you.
Well, after all, that was down 30 feet.
So you were in the tunnel?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Each tunnel began with a shaft that was 30 feet deep. From this depth, the German guards wouldn't be able to hear the work that was going on right under their feet. The prisoners used wooden bed slats to shore up the walls and built a railway to speed them through the dimly lit passage.
Tell me, would you feel a little claustrophobic?
Well, yes. The truth of the matter is yes.
What tunnel were you in? Do you remember? There was
Harry.
Harry. Okay. Which is what they ultimately used.
Yes.
During that time period, one of the tunnels actually was noted by the Germans and blown up. Were you there at that time?
Yes.
Was that a disappointment that at least all that work on one of the tunnels had been discovered?
Sure, it was.
Then you guys ultimately got moved to the South Compound, which was the Americans, and were not part of the big breakout. But did you know when it was going on?
Well, we knew when it happened, but you know the British were very good about security, and they didn't let that information out.
Had hoped to lead 200 men to freedom. Tunnel collapses and an unexpected air raid allowed fewer than half that number to get out before they were spotted by the German guards. The improvised scene culminated in Hilt's daring attempt to leap across the barbed wire barrier that stood between him and freedom in Switzerland.
When it all happened, when all, excuse the term, hell was breaking loose, what was going on at the South Compound?
Before long, the Gestapo came in and marched us all out to the so-called parade ground and searched everybody. They were pretty rough. I got a couple of rifle butt digs in my ribs.
In real life, most of the 76 Allied airmen were recaptured within days of their escape. But instead of being returned to Stalag Luft III, they were held by the Gestapo.
Hitler had issued something called the Sagan Order, which became a subject of the Nuremberg trial.
It was.
And you saw Jackson was right on the right-hand side of
Yes.
Sir Maxwell Fyfe in that piece there.
For I believe in keeping one's oath not in good times only, but also in bad times when it is much more difficult.
It was really sort of a duty of the captured airmen to try to escape.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And you took that seriously.
I did.
Talk about a couple of opportunities you tried.
Well, unless you've had the experience of having a gate closed behind you to where you've lost your liberty, you can't appreciate what that felt like. And from that moment, I swore that I'd get out of that camp. Of course, I didn't do it very quickly. The first attempt was by another officer by the name of Langberg and I. We had noticed that there were wagon ruts under a gate that through which the wagons with bread and so on traveled, and they had closed that gate. And of course, there were the ruts, wheel ruts, were there, and I thought, in looking at it, that we could squeeze through that. And of course, you couldn't escape without the approval of the senior American officer. And
there was actually a committee where you sort of made
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
where you organized.
Yes. And, well, the plan was that during a snow fight, or a snowstorm rather, a bunch of the prisoners were to get in a fight out there to distract the guard up in the tower. And that was the plan. And the plan was that before I was the leader, before I went under the fence, I was to look over to see whether one of the, well, as it turned out, a lieutenant colonel who was supposed to give the off signal just wasn't there. And since I didn't see him, I went ahead and jumped the warning fence and got on and got through the one fence. They were double fences, and in doing it, it wasn't quite as generous a space as I had originally thought, so that I shook that fence. And the guard, who was some 20 feet away up in the tower, felt or saw the shaking and grabbed his gun and saw me down there. And as it turned out, his gun jammed.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And of course, I was caught, and so was my partner. And we were sent to what they call the cooler. And we were there on 21 days on bread and water.
You didn't have a baseball, did you? You weren't bouncing it off the wall the whole time?
No. Second one was we had a hotshot member of the OSS who had devised a scheme where we would go over the fences and during what they were going to do is during an air raid, when the lights were supposed to have been turned off, one of the prisoners was supposed to throw a cable over the wire to short out the system. Well, as it turned out, what we didn't know and learned before the attempt was made was that there were two circuits. And so that we wouldn't have succeeded in shorting the system. And that was the end of that.